So I'm sure most of you heard the news by now, but for those who didn't, Ubisoft has now confirmed that they're gonna stop supporting Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Operation Motherland was the last DLC we got for the game, and even though it was a really good one, it seems like it wasn't enough. I gotta be honest, this is kinda sad for me. I have built my channel with Breakpoint, and most of you guys come here to watch me play it. So just to reassure you, after reading a lot of DMs, just because there won't be new content for this game does not mean I am going to stop playing it. Especially since Breakpoint was never a very stable game content-wise. Updates and content drops have always been very spaced apart and for the most part pretty skinny as well, with not so much stuff to offer. I've also never relied on updates to keep my content flowing, and just because we're not getting them anymore does not mean I'll stop making content for it. I mean, just look at it this way. Wildland stopped being supported years ago, and my Wildland videos are still some of the most watched content in my channel. So what is the point of stopping now just because there are no more updates coming to the game? There is no point, so I will not stop. Especially because this game, as flawed as it is still a one of a kind. Especially when you look into things from a different perspective. What other third-person game do you have where you can completely roleplay your missions with tons of different weapons, gear, gadgets, vehicles? You simply don't have such a game that can be played either solo or with friends, and especially not one that is available for the consoles. But I will say this though, the state that Breakpoint is in right now at the end of its life cycle, it's in a much better one than it was when it released. And if this is it, then I am completely happy and satisfied with what we got left to play. Ubisoft used their last patch to fix some of the ongoing bugs, and hopefully we can have a smoother experience for the ones who are left here to play it. Which is not to say that this didn't left a sour taste in my mouth. I think there were a lot of things that could have been done differently, even after the horrible launch the game had. Especially on the PR department, which I've always felt it was non-existent at times. And when something was posted, it was usually pretty bland, and if you take a look at the comments on those posts, either being on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, people were not only not satisfied, but also very verbal about how bad the game was, especially when compared to its predecessor, Ghost Recon Wildlands, which is something I can relate to. Because even though Breakpoint did improve on a lot of aspects during the game cycle, it also never managed to bring that vibe of a true war-torn country that Wildlands had. Even with the new DLC that was a pretty damn good one with the Russian invasion and whatnot, you know, in the end of the day, minus a cool mission here and there, the game just felt way too colorful for a Ghost Recon game. Sure, there were some dead bodies laying around, but not in the scale that Wildlands had. And I think that was the biggest missed opportunity. You can blame the setting all you want, but the fact is, what better place to commit absolute genocides than in a tropical island in the middle of nowhere where there are no cameras and nobody to watch? You don't have it, and the fact they managed to capture a better war-torn feeling in Bolivia just speaks loads about how Breakpoint was never going to be truly saved. And that is something I have been saying for a while now. The game could have gotten much better, and it did, but sometimes when a launch is so bad, there really is nothing you can do besides starting on a fresh new piece of paper. I think the game has been tainted since the start. The public opinion of it definitely did, and even though a lot of people came back to it with the DLC, I just don't think it was enough. It was definitely way too little, way too late. One thing people always keep in mind when judging a game is by listening to what content creators have to say. In the end of the day, they get their hands in sooner, and obviously they have more time to elaborate on the problems of a game. With Breakpoint though, that didn't really happen. Not only was the launch so bad that no real creator wanted to deeply cover it, at least not in the same vein that Wildlands did, but the following updates were never seen to draw on any of them back. The truth is, big content creators are the ones who create hype for games. How many times have you stopped playing a game because your favorite YouTuber said he was done with it? Or even better and probably more relatable, how many times have you bought a game because you saw a cool video on YouTube and you decided, well, that looks really fun, I'm looking for something similar, so I'm going to buy it. Even though I am such a small YouTube channel, I do know that because of my videos, hundreds of people bought the game, and for the most part actually had a ton of fun after messing up with the settings of it. So for that, I am really grateful that I managed to show off a different side of Breakpoint. Unfortunately though, that was not the side that Ubisoft originally intended for the game. In typical Ubisoft fashion, they launched this super colorful game with more UI icons than I can count in a way to please all ages and bring as much people in as they can. They turned the game into a looter shooter because that worked somewhere else. They made the easier difficulty so easy that you don't have to actually seek cover while getting shot, which destroys one of the key mechanics of the game in itself. They added in a crap ton of microtransactions so you could buy items that I still don't know what they were doing there, and unlike what they expected, nobody liked it. I don't understand why companies think that appealing to all audiences is how you get a game to stick, because it truly isn't. I mean, just look at Escape from Tarkov, for example. This is one of the most brutal first-person shooters in history. It literally burns my eyes every time I play it because of how hard it is, because there are no tutorials, no in-game help, there is literally nothing to make you feel like you belong there, and yet it is one of the most streamed games in the world, and it's only growing ever since. So appealing to massive audiences is not the way to go. Not only do you lose your identity, but you lose players as well because you don't have the special glue that keeps the players in. Instead, and on this case, you have a mixed bag of content. You got Terminators running around, you have Lara Croft, Easter egg hunt, you have all these different DLCs that really have nothing to do with Ghost Recon. They even add in Vietnam era outfits for a game that has nothing to do with Vietnam. And in the end of it all, you just got a game that is totally lost in its direction, with absolute zero trust left in the player base. And that is absolutely what happened here. And the scariest part is that Wildlands was seen as a bad game when it released. When Breakpoint released, all of a sudden, Wildlands was an absolute gem in the open world genre. The same can be said about the last 3 games of the Battlefield franchise, and the entire point I'm trying to make here is, are we gonna be saying this Breakpoint was a gem if and when a new Ghost Recon game releases? Because the way they are going about their new titles with NFTs and Frontline in the mix, that is all I'm seeing here. And they did say they were gonna take our opinions into the future of the franchise, which only leads me to think they are working on a new game. Or they're just gonna put it in the back burner for another decade, the same way they did with Splinter Cell, because, well, Splinter Cell games are not easy to monetize, hence they completely stopped making them. Now, I don't want to make this video sound like a sad day in the park here. The truth is, Ghost Recon has an amazing community, and I feel like the franchise still has a lot to offer. I don't see them going through all of this work with Breakpoint to suddenly just shut it down. The fact they improved so much, and they did that through listening what we had to say throughout the years, does make me feel reassured that at least they know what we want. Now, whether the devs have anything to say about that when it's the big boss that rules the office, well, we don't know about that. But they are definitely leaving Breakpoint with a good sense of what we want in a Ghost Recon game. I just hope that for their next installments, if and when that happens, they really take what we said to the letter for the good of the franchise and for the amazing community they have. And on a personal note, I really wanted them to have a better sense of who they picked to represent them, as the official content creators of this game are pretty much non-existent. The entire move behind having a community-focused group of creators called Delta Company ended up completely backfiring against them, since most of those members absolutely quitted the game right off the bat. And like we said before, if your favorite content creator says a game sucks, you're probably gonna start thinking the same. So when the only members of that company only actually upload any video of the game they are supposed to cover is to give updates about the game, well, they're not doing anybody a real service here. Which is not to say they're in the wrong here. Everyone has different goals in how they want to cover a game, and who am I to judge, right? But for one game to be successful in having a healthy player base, you do need people who are passionate about it. Now, what do you guys think of this? Do you think there's gonna be a new game? Do you think this is it and we're gonna be left with Frontline instead? I literally just saw something about the new Ghost Recon game coming out in 2023, codenamed Over, which it's kinda meany on itself, isn't it? So you know what, take it with a grain of salt, don't overhype it. I am definitely eager to read all of your comments, and I'll most likely make a video about this sooner than later, going about all the things they did really good with Breakpoint and with Wildlands as well, because I know if you add in the best things about both games, you have an absolute killer of a game there. But this is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all on the next one.